Okay, so just take a moment and think about the world you see around you. The people, the trees, buildings, animals. We sort of experience life at our own scale, right? Our own timeline. It feels natural to be human-centric. But what if that view misses like 99% of the actual story? What if the real deep history of Earth, the story that shaped the ground we walk on, the air we breathe, what if it isn't really about us? Or even about the plants and animals we see? Today, we're doing a deep dive into this realm that's ancient, mostly invisible, but absolutely fundamental to everything. We're looking at Earth's history not top-down, but from the bottom up, through the eyes of its oldest and most powerful inhabitants, microbes. Our guide is this really mind-bending book, Microcosmos, 4 billion years of microbial evolution, by Lynn Margulis and Dorion Sagan.
And the core idea they present is, well, it's pretty revolutionary. The microbial world isn't just something that came before complex life, it is the foundation. It's vastly older, billions of years older than any plant or animal. And it's these microbes that have been the main architects of, the planet's atmosphere, its geology, its chemistry.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to peel back those layers, unpack the really surprising stuff from Microcosmos, and maybe fundamentally rethink what it means to be alive and where we actually fit in the big picture.
To really get the importance of microbes, we have to go back, like way back. We're talking the Hadean and Archean eons, billions of years ago. It's actually hard to even picture. Early Earth was just, born from cosmic junk, molten, chaotic.
Super hot, right?
Yeah.
The book says there aren't even any rocks left from the very beginning. We only know about it from meteorites, moon rocks.
Exactly. But eventually, maybe around, say, 3.9 billion years ago, it cooled just enough for a thin crust to form over that boiling mantle. And then all the water vapor in that early, thick atmosphere, it condensed.
Imagine rainstorms lasting, maybe 100,000 years? Just incredible downpours, creating these hot, shallow oceans everywhere.
And the air back then, totally different. Hydrogen-rich, full of gases like methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide.
And crucially, almost no free oxygen.
Right. Plus, conditions were just brutal. Volcanoes everywhere, constant meteorite hits, massive lightning storms, intense UV light.
It sounds impossible.
Yeah.
How could life possibly start there?
Well, that's the big question scientists chase. The book talks about experiments like the famous Miller-Urey one back in the 50s.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. They zapped chemicals.
They did. And later work by Orgel, Eigen, Spiegelman, they showed that the basic building blocks, things like amino acids for proteins, even bits of DNA and RNA, could actually form spontaneously, just from simple chemicals and energy under those early Earth conditions.
Wow, so the ingredients were just kind of there.
Potentially, yes. And what's really fascinating, as the authors explain, is how these compounds might have started interacting. They talk about things called autocatalytic cycles and hypercycles. Basically complex chemical reactions where molecules helped make more of themselves or other molecules in the cycle.
So not just random chemistry, but self-organizing, like the first hints of cooperation.
Exactly, the very first stirrings of something beyond just inert matter.
And the huge leap, according to Microcosmos, wasn't just making the molecules, but getting them organized, contained.
Right, the emergence of membrane-bounded cells, little bags holding DNA and RNA able to copy themselves, build proteins.
True cells, bacteria. And the shocker is how early this happened.
That's the thing, it was remarkably early. The book hammers this home. Life was already thriving before 3.5 billion years ago.
And we have proof, like actual fossils.
We do. They point to fossils found in rocks 3.4 billion years old, from South Africa, Australia. Simple little spheres and filaments. They look a lot like modern cyanobacteria. And there's even some controversial evidence. Carbon signatures in rocks from Greenland, 3.8 billion years old, that might suggest photosynthesis was happening almost as soon as the oceans formed.
Okay, let's just pause on that, because this is huge, right?
Yeah.
A key point from the book. The jump from non-living chemicals to the first actual living, replicating cells, bacteria, took less time.
Less time than all the rest of evolution that followed. Less time than it took to get from bacteria to us, or trees, or dinosaurs.
So microbial life wasn't just a brief opening act. It's been Earth's constant companion, adapting, changing the planet for billions of years before anything bigger showed up.
Which brings us right into the age of bacteria for, an almost incomprehensible amount of time, billions of years. Earth was a bacterial planet.
And it seems simple, right? Compared to ourselves with a nucleus and everything. Fewer genes.
Deceptively simple. That simplicity is actually their strength. It gives them incredible flexibility, adaptability. Unmatched, really.
And the book highlights their secret weapon, this thing called horizontal gene transfer.
Yes. Forget just passing genes down generations, parent to child, the slow way. Bacteria swap genes directly, all the time.
Like bacterial sex, the book calls it, but between totally different types.
Exactly. Routinely, rapidly, promiscuously, as they put it. Between different individuals, different strains, even different species, they're constantly sharing genetic code.
Okay, what does that actually mean, though, on a big scale?
It means basically that all the bacteria in the world have access to this single, massive, global gene pool. If one bacterium somewhere evolves a useful trick, say, resisting an antibiotic or eating a new chemical,
You can just pass it along, like sharing a file.
pretty much, it shares it horizontally, neighbors share it with their neighbors.
Huh.
That new gene can spread incredibly fast across the globe.
So the speed difference is huge compared to us or animals. They adapt in years,
Yeah.
decades, not millions of years.
Right, that's why they can live almost anywhere. They adapt on the fly.
And this constant sharing, this connection, it leads the authors to this really wild idea, doesn't it? The bacterial superorganism.
It does. They suggest maybe we shouldn't just think of them as individuals. Maybe they function more like a single, vast, interconnected entity, a worldwide superorganism.
A superorganism.
Yeah,
Like our own body is a community of cells working together.
kind of like that, yes. They argue bacterial teams work together to run the planet. Essential tasks: breaking down dead stuff, cycling elements, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur purifying water, making soil fertile, even maintaining the balance of gases in the atmosphere.
They're like Earth's operating system.
In a way, yeah, the fundamental layer, keeping everything going.
So the analogy, bacterial teams are to Earth what our organs are to us. A complex metabolism adjusting locally. That's quite an image.
It is, and they suggest these bacterial networks, built over billions of years, have a kind of planetary memory or intelligence.
That our own information systems, the internet and all that, are only just starting to mimic.
Precisely. We're newcomers to the global information game compared to bacteria.
Okay, so this bacterial dominance eventually led to maybe the biggest change ever in Earth's environment, right? And it was caused by life itself.
Absolutely. The evolution of oxygen-producing photosynthesis, cyanobacteria mostly. Unlike earlier types of photosynthesis, these guys started splitting water molecules. And the waste product, oxygen, O2.
Which was bad news for most life back then.
Terrible news. Most life had evolved without oxygen. To them, it was toxic, poisonous, corrosive. So as these cyanobacteria spread, churning out oxygen, it started building up, first in the oceans, then the atmosphere. The book calls it the oxygen holocaust, a massive pollution crisis starting maybe 2 billion years ago. Oxygen levels jumped from almost nothing to eventually our current 21%.
And we see evidence in the rocks, those banded iron formations.
Yeah, that's thought to be iron rusting out of the oceans as oxygen levels rose. But here's where Microcosmos gets really interesting. They don't just see it as a disaster. They suggest that life itself, the bacterial microcosm, somehow managed this crisis.
They managed it how?
By evolving ways to deal with oxygen, to detoxify it, even to use it. They argued the bacteria prevented the atmosphere from becoming too toxic for life overall to continue. It implies some kind of planetary self-regulation.
Wait, so unintelligent organisms, bacteria, basically pulled off a global environmental rescue on a scale we can't even imagine tackling today.
That's the implication. It really challenges our ideas about intelligence and control, doesn't it? If bacteria could manage a crisis like that, what does that say about planetary systems and our own supposed uniqueness?
Yeah, it flips the script. We think we're the planet's managers, but bacteria were doing it billions of years ago. And however they did it, this oxygen event totally changed the planet. Wiped out lots of anaerobic life, but also
Created a high-energy world, an environment where new kinds of life that could use that powerful oxygen for energy, could evolve.
which leads right into the next big leap, the eukaryotic cell.
Exactly. The kind of cell that makes up, well, us. And plants, animals, fungi, protists, everything that's not bacteria or archaea, much bigger, much more complex than bacterial cells, has a nucleus, internal compartments called organelles. And this happened relatively fast after the oxygen crisis really took hold, maybe around 1.5 billion years ago. This difference, prokaryote versus eukaryote, is like the most fundamental split in all of life.
And here's the really radical idea from the book, Margulis' big contribution, right? Eukaryotic cells didn't just evolve from bacteria slowly.
No, the idea is they are products of symbiosis, mergers. Different bacteria coming together to form new cooperative wholes.
Not electives, like little teams inside a bigger cell.
Precisely. This is the end of symbiotic theory. The classic examples, now pretty much accepted science, are mitochondria,
Or energy factories.
right, using oxygen, and chloroplasts.
Photosynthetic engines in plants and algae.
The theory, backed by tons of evidence now, is that mitochondria started as aerobic bacteria that somehow got inside another host cell. Maybe eaten, maybe invaded, but they stayed.
And chloroplasts came from photosynthetic cyanobacteria doing the same thing.
That's the idea. They became permanent residents working for the larger cell.
And the evidence is really strong, isn't it? The book lists it out.
Oh, yeah. It's compelling. Mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own DNA. It's separate from the nucleus, and it's circular, like bacterial DNA.
Huh?
They have their own ribosomes, the machinery for making proteins, and those look like bacterial ribosomes, not the eukaryotic ones elsewhere in the cell.
Okay.
They reproduce by just dividing in two, like bacteria do, independently of the main cell cycle.
Wow.
And maybe the clincher, they're sensitive to certain antibiotics that kill bacteria, but don't harm the rest of the eukaryotic cell.
That's amazing. It's like they remember being bacteria.
It really looks that way. And the book mentions lab experiments too, like Quang Jin's work with amoebas getting infected by bacteria.
And the infection became necessary.
Exactly. Over time, neither the amoeba nor the bacteria could live without the other. It showed how fast these dependent relationships can form, mirroring what might have happened billions of years ago.
So the big takeaway for us, for you listening, is that our own cells, every single one, aren't single things. They're ancient communities.
We are literally built from these ancient collaborations. Our bodies are living history books carrying the legacy of these microbial mergers.
Mind blown. Okay, and the book takes this symbiosis idea even further, right? Not just mitochondria and chloroplasts.
Yeah, they explore other possibilities, like microtubules. These are protein tubes inside our cells, crucial for shape, movement.
Cilia flagella, the things that let cells swim.
Those too, and they're essential for cell division, pulling chromosomes apart. The hypothesis, more speculative but fascinating, is that these might have originated from symbiotic spirochetes.
Spirochetes, those corkscrew bacteria, known for moving fast.
Exactly. The idea is their motility systems might have been incorporated, repurposed inside the eukaryotic cell.
And you see microtubules everywhere. Important stuff happens, like mitosis, cell division, that whole precise dance of chromosomes relies on them.
Totally. And centrioles, those structures that organize microtubules in animal cells, they look identical to the base of flagella, the kinetosomes. It suggests a deep connection to movement.
Okay, this leads to a pretty wild thought the book raises.
Go on.
If microtubules came from spirochetes, and our nervous system, our brain, is packed with specialized microtubules called neurotubules, could the very foundation of our thinking, our consciousness, somehow be rooted in these ancient bacterial movement systems?
It's a provocative leap, for sure, but it fits the pattern complex structures arising from ancient symbiotic partnerships. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit.
Yeah.
From the microscopic to the macroscopic, fungi, plants, animals. The big stuff we see.
Right. The book explains these evolved relatively quickly, geologically speaking, after the microbial world and symbiosis laid the groundwork with the eukaryotic cell.
And multicellularity, making complex bodies, happened multiple times independently.
Yeah. Different groups figured it out separately, but they all built upon that sophisticated eukaryotic cell blueprint.
Then came the move to land, another huge challenge.
Huge. Plants needed things like lignin, that tough woody stuff, possibly developed with help from a symbiotic fungi. Animals needed lungs, ways to breathe air instead of water. More adaptations likely involving more symbioses.
So now, us, humanity. How does the book frame us in this vast microbial story?
Well, it directly challenges the usual view, the anthropocentric one, where we're the peak of evolution.
Not winners.
From this deep time microbial perspective, we're just one very, very recent branch, a temporary pointillist epiphenomenon, as they memorably put it, a fleeting pattern on a vast ancient canvas.
Ouch. But also humbling.
Very. They talk about things like redundant innovation, like how walking upright freed our ancestors' hands.
Hands originally used for climbing or walking.
Exactly. Suddenly they had this excess capacity, this redundancy, and that allowed totally new things to emerge, like making complex tools.
Makes sense. They also mentioned the retarded ape idea, right? Neoteny.
Yes. The idea that humans are kind of like apes whose development got slowed down, our long childhood or total dependence, might have forced us into stronger family bonds, social groups, cooperation. ultimately leading to civilization, our helplessness made us social.
Interesting twist.
But the core message, again and again in Microcosmos, is that even with all our culture and tech, we are fundamentally products of billions of years of microbial evolution and combination. We are walking, talking ecosystems, complex bacterial associations that evolved. Our minds, our tools, you can even see them as emerging properties of this incredibly ancient networked microbial life.
Okay, so that's the past, billions of years of it. What about the future? The book looks ahead, too.
It does, and it's pretty clear-eyed. Humanity, like basically every species before us, is likely heading for extinction eventually.
Yeah.
That's just the pattern of life.
Sobering. But life itself goes on.
Oh, absolutely. Life is incredibly resilient. The author suggests life will likely continue its ancient drive to expand, to merge, to find new ways, maybe even beyond Earth.
Into space. Not necessarily us in rockets, but life carrying its environment with it.
Possibly. Life finding ways to package its essential microbial support systems and spread. And they point to the incredible acceleration we're seeing now.
Technology speeding things up.
Massively. Biotechnology, genetic engineering. We're now manipulating life, directing evolution at speeds that are just, well, blindingly fast compared to natural selection.
Like mimicking that bacterial gene swapping, but on hyperdrive.
Kind of, yeah. And then there's the information revolution. Computers, networks, creating this global, interconnected social nervous system.
Echoing those ancient bacterial networks again.
You could see it that way. It's all leading somewhere, perhaps towards what they speculatively call the supercosm.
The supercosm with that.
Vast technology-supported communities, maybe involving intelligent machines that can reproduce, maintain themselves, blurring the lines between biology and technology.
And the question they pose is, are we humans just like temporary vehicles, containers for our organelles, for the microcosm to continue its journey into these new forms?
It's a wild thought. They even throw out futuristic human microbe symbiosis ideas, like Homo photosyntheticus, people with algae in their skin living on sunlight.
Okay, that's pretty sci-fi.
It's imaginative, yeah, but it illustrates the principle. Life keeps merging, keeps combining in unexpected ways.
And bringing it back to the planet, the book resonates strongly with the Gaia idea, right? James Lovelock's concept.
Definitely. The idea that the whole biosphere, all of life together, acts like a single system that regulates the Earth's environment, temperature, atmosphere, oceans, to keep it habitable for life.
And the engine of that regulation, for billions of years, has been the microbes.
That's the key takeaway. The microbial control systems are ancient, robust, time-tested. They've handled massive crises before. It suggests the planet as a whole is incredibly resilient.
Even against us, our impacts.
Potentially. From this very long-term view, even major extinction events aren't necessarily failures. They can prune the tree of life, making way for new forms, maybe even strengthening the biosphere overall by favoring more robust symbiosis.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive into Microcosmos, it really forces a huge shift in perspective, doesn't it?
Completely. Away from human exceptionalism towards understanding our absolute dependence on and connection to this ancient microbial world.
The world that literally built the planet and built us.
It just highlights the sheer scale of microbial history. Billions of years, they laid the foundation. Everything else, plants, animals, us, our thoughts, it all grew out of that microbial soil, those ancient innovations and mergers.
So maybe the final thought to leave you, the listener, with is this. If our bodies are communities, if our cells are ancient collaborations, if maybe even our minds have roots in bacterial systems, what does that really mean for our idea of being an individual? And looking forward, given life's incredible history of merging and expanding, what other kinds of astonishing life forms, what new symbioses might emerge in the future, with or without us as the dominant players? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the microbial roots of, well, pretty much everything.